A year or so ago, I posted a video of drone footage of abandoned and neglected sites in southern New Jersey, which prominently featured the skeletal remains of a derelict old boat from the 1920s rotting away on a sandbar. A few comments asked for more information on that wreck, but I had nothing to offer. The ship itself was a complete mystery, with only the name Hazel Moore to identify it. Going on a quick little adventure right now. There's a fishing boat that beached up ahead called the Hazel Moore. Now, I looked at it from afar so many times, but I never went up to it. And I've seen people post online that they walked up to it. They explored it even a little bit. There's not much left to explore, but I thought, let's go check it out, do a little tour video of it. There's Emma back there. She's gonna be doing the other camera. We timed this as best as we could with the lowest tide of the month that happened to be during daylight hours. So we were lucky. There's a hurricane passing through here right now, but it just dipped away. So it's supposed to be storming all night. It was storming all morning. We've got a miraculous window of sunshine right now. So we're gonna head out to that wreck and we're gonna take a look at it right now while we still have some light. Over to the side, we have this piling of wood. Never seen this before. Let's take a quick look at it and see if perhaps it's associated with the wreck. Oh, well, this is most certainly a part of that ship. We can see how it tapers in towards a bow point or a stern point. Iron bracing. Man, hate to be walking through here at high tide. Now, after recording this walkthrough of the wreck, I would later find out that the ship wasn't even called the Hazel Moore. While Hazel Moore is the name of a Mayflower Pilgrim descendant who moved to New Jersey, the only vessels I could find by that name was a gas launch involved in a rescue near Atlantic City in 1905, and this tiny pleasure boat in Luna Park, New York. Definitely not the wreck in question. There's a lot of mystery about this wreck, and I was pretty certain that all I'd be able to do in this video was tour the wreckage and present the different theories, but I managed to find the conclusive truth straight from the horse's mouth, the guy who owned the ship back in the day. Of course, a huge thanks to the Maurice River Heritage Archives for pointing me in the right direction. Nelson Klein, or locally known as Captain Klein, is the son of the man who brought the boat here. He gave me the definitive story. The name of the vessel is actually the Fremont, a bunker boat built in the 1910s for fishing on the Hudson River as part of a fleet of similar boats, based out of White Plains, New York. When in service, the Fremont looked pretty similar to this bunker boat right here. She was even painted white, just like this one. After 40 or so years of service, the Fremont and two other vessels from the same fleet were brought to the Dorchester shipyard in New Jersey for scrapping. She had a 2-cylinder gasoline engine that was removed, and many of her other fixtures pulled off as well. The remaining wooden bodies of these boats were to be used as jetties to preserve sandbars, but Nelson Klein Sr. managed to acquire the Fremont for himself. He intended to tow it to the East Point Road, permanently moor it, and use the boat as a quaint little cafe in the 1960s. And so, the Fremont was towed down from Dorchester in February 1967, but they missed the tide, and the boat beached on a sandbar about 100 feet north of where it sits today. For the rest of that year, Nelson and his son worked to caulk the boat and maintain it, pumping out water and keeping it together, all the while using a cable and crank to try to work the ship free from the sandbar. In 1968, Nelson Sr. fell ill during the Hong Kong flu pandemic, and a nor'easter hit in the spring, moving the boat to its current site and digging it in. Nelson Sr. never revisited his plans for the boat, and the ship sat there, wrecked from the storm and countless storms since, falling apart over the years. The Fremont has sat there ever since, falling apart and serving as a jetty breakwater, protecting the sandbar near East Point Lighthouse. Ironically, this is the exact fate that she was supposed to have been saved from. It's likely that the source of confusion regarding the name of the boat comes from this photograph showing a very similar vessel with the name Hazel Moore on the bow, and labeled as being in Heislerville, which is indeed the closest town to the wreck of the Fremont. However, we could see that the Hazel Moore is not our mystery wreck. The wreck in question has a larger deck house and a railing on the upper deck, a bow post, a hawse hole in the bow, 2 longitudinal beams in the hull, and a straighter rise in her bow line. And I don't think it's likely that this ship would be remodeled at all when only shortly before it was bound for the scrapyard. What is likely, however, is that the Hazel Moore seen in this photograph was one of 2 other similar vessels acquired by the Dorchester shipyard at the same time, and likely sits forgotten on a sandbar elsewhere in southern New Jersey right now. The tide's sweeping in pretty quickly, so I'm not going to be waiting in the water all that much longer. Nelson Jr. was not only able to give me the full story, but he detailed the layout of the vessel to me. This aft compartment was the engine room, as is obviously indicated by the machine remnants on the wreckage. I can't identify much of the machinery that's left, but the rudder block still stands on the stern, iron tanks, and possibly some piston heads, and the propeller shaft is still buried in the sand. I'm going to be very cautious stepping in here. Old electrical cables. Let's see, is there a doorway? Yes, there is. There is a doorway that goes from the after engine compartment into the middle compartment, and that's where we're going now. Moving forward, in the middle of the ship is the fish hold. Thousands of fish were packed into here on a successful haul. Seeing that there's 2 separate posts along the ship's center line, like boards of wood would have been piled up vertically between, and those 2 posts would have braced them, I'm thinking that this middle compartment would have been divided along the center line. You have to go through this companionway into this section, cross over the center line, and then go through this hatchway here, which would have been far over to the ship's hull. I didn't have the information on the layout at the time that I recorded this footage, so you'll see that I'm still piecing things together as we explored it. Forward of the fish hold were 6 crew bunks. These are the remains of ladders going up to the upper deck. We can see it here and here because we can actually see where the steps were grooved into these vertical beams. So this would have been a ladder up there, that would have been a ladder up there. Given their odd placement, I would say there was probably another wall right here between the 2. We got a tank and another tank right there. Just speculating, but that could have been fresh water. Nothing of the upper decks remains, but the deck house above the 6 crewman bunk room contained the galley and crew mess up forward, with 4 bunks aft of that. The galley still had a large cast iron stove in it when the vessel was abandoned here. Above this was the small pilot house, and aft of that was the captain's cabin. This photograph shows the after deck house partially collapsed, with only the forward and aft ends still standing. In that deck house were 4 additional bunks and 2 bathrooms at the back end, one on the port, one on the starboard. All in all, the Fremont was 110 feet long and roughly 14 feet wide. Now, aside from what Captain Klein told me, there is nothing known about this ship, especially her career. I found no records of her existence online, though someone might be able to turn something up, and searching for the Fremont has proven fruitless. And definitely don't search for Hazel Moore if you're at work. The Fremont does not have a thrilling story of disaster or perilous rescue. There's no grand ending to this tale, and it looks like the women on the Hazel Moore had a jollier time. But this story does finally discern the fact from fiction about this mysterious and somewhat iconic wreckage, or at least locally iconic. The story of the Fremont is one of an unrealized dream, foiled simply by a missed tide and bad weather. It's not too dissimilar to the concrete ship SS Atlantis, wrecked 18 miles due south of here. Check out my video exploring that wreck too if you're interested, and please be sure to subscribe for more stories of lost history. For those of you who haven't ever seen these before, they're scattered all along the side of the wreck. These are horseshoe crabs. Well, this is a dead one right here. They're unique to this part of the American East Coast. He's been chewed through. That's a part of one. There's more. They're all along here. The tide is actually presenting a little bit of a problem to us because we have to exit here along that beach, and that beach is disappearing. So we're gonna have to cut this a little short before the tide completely envelops the ship. We're gonna have to pull out of here because I really don't want to cut through private property to get out, especially since they're all home and watching. So we're gonna be cutting this one short in a little bit. But we did get some amazing shots, and it was neat to be able to finally see this wreck up close, walk through it. She'll be here for definitely a few more years to come. I mean, she's been here 80 years. There's still a significant chunk of her left. Unless a storm comes along and rocks her loose and pulls her out and rips her apart, she's definitely going to be here for many, many more years. Man, look at those colors out there. Isn't that gorgeous? And I gotta say, I am soaked, but I don't mind. This water is so warm. I love it. I almost wish I had my bathing suit. I'd just dive in and swim. Not at the wreck, somewhere clear of here. It's only gonna get a lot worse. Now we're all wrapped up back here at East Point Lighthouse. It looks like this arm of the hurricane is gonna pass us by without really pouring down, but it did make for some choppy seas out there. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us on this adventure. If you saw some stuff in that wreck that I might have missed or got wrong, do drop a comment below. Let me know, and once again, thank you very much. Goodbye.